There is always constant change, and that has the impact on payroll. No 2 days are the same. There's always something going on. There's always changes, and it's always developing. The amount of legislation that's around, the amount of knowledge that is actually required in the profession is underestimated. The important asset in your team is your people. And if you don't actually listen and put them first, you won't have a team.
Keeping businesses thriving, compliance and safe, forecasting strategy, it's all on our mind. It's time payroll took its place in the boardroom to shine.
What does global payroll without borders actually look like in real life? It's one platform handling every country you operate in. Real-time insights, automated tax logic, and zero handoffs between HR, IT, finance, or local vendors. That's exactly what happens when payroll runs on Deal's own global infrastructure. It's faster, it's cleaner, and built for teams that need accuracy every single time. See it for yourself at DEEL.com/nickday. Hello and welcome back to the Payroll Podcast. Now, how does someone build a payroll career that not only spans decades, but also leads a team to win in-house Payroll Team of the Year in one of the most complex payroll environments anywhere in the UK? Well, today's guest didn't go looking for a payroll career. Payroll found her. And what followed is a career packed with transformation, leadership, resilience, NHS complexity, which may give my guest away, and a genuine love for the profession. Firstly, if you're new to the show, welcome to the Payroll Podcast. Please do remember to click follow or subscribe. If you get a chance, please do leave us a 5-star review. But most importantly, can you share this episode with all of your payroll colleagues and friends so we can really raise the profile of this wonderful profession worldwide? My name is Nick Day. I'm the CEO at JGA Recruitment Group. So we're a specialist payroll recruitment firm. So if you do need top talent, please do check the links in the show notes so you can click straight through to my wonderful team. And today I am joined by someone who represents the heart of the payroll profession, someone who has spent her entire career improving payroll operations, championing pay and reward, and leading a team of recognized recently as the in-house payroll team of the year at the Reward Strategy Awards. I'm speaking, of course, about Karen Beckett. She is head of payroll and benefits at Dorset Healthcare University NHS Foundation Trust, and her journey into payroll is a story that I think many of our listeners will relate to. Accidental beginnings, deep learning, unexpected opportunities, pivotal mentors, and a profession that slowly became a passion. And we're going to find out all about that today on the Payroll Podcast. So Karen, welcome to the show. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, Nick. How are you?
Very good. Very good to have you here. We're recording on a slightly different platform today, so if it feels a little bit different, we had a few technical problems, but we found a way around it, so we're recording slightly differently today. But look, I'm going to start with my first question, something I ask all of my guests, which is this. What does the word payroll mean to you?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Payroll. I think, for me, it's about making a difference. If people are paid correctly, and particularly, this is relevant really in the NHS, but also outside of the NHS. But, for us, we focus also on patient care. So, even in the payroll team, we have in what my class is indirect patient care. So if people are literally, not worrying about their pay, they know that they're going to be paid, they know what their income is, then they can then focus on dealing with their job, their day job, they're, focusing on the patients. And for me, payroll is about across, I've worked in the private sector as well, but it is about, as far as I'm concerned, making sure that people don't have those financial worries, that they have a reliable payroll service, that they can, they know that come their payday, their money's going to be in their account, it's going to be correct, and everything's done efficiently for them. So I think, for me, that's probably at the heart of what payroll is.
Fantastic. And I don't know about our listeners, but for me, of all the people I want to make sure they get paid correctly and on time, I think doctors, nurses, and those that look after us when we're sick and unwell or have an accident are probably some of the most important people we want to make sure their pay is correct. We don't want people operating, doing open heart surgery, worrying about whether they're going to get paid at the end of the week, right? That's not what you want in the back of their mind. So you want total focus, or at least I do. But let's go back to where it all began. How did you first get into payroll, and was it the career that you imagined for yourself?
I fell into payroll. I think, at that time, nobody really chose payroll as a career. It wasn't deemed as a career. yes, it was an essential part of the organisations, but people never really, I don't think, took it as seriously as being, an accountant or in HR. It was something that was done a little bit in the background, I think. And I think, yes, we've raised the profile now, but then it was very much in the background. So I fell into payroll. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Initially, I wanted to go into the police force. So you could actually say, payroll is probably a bit like policing in some respects, but that's what I wanted to do. But when I wanted to go in, I needed my parents' permission because I wanted to go in as a cadet, and they weren't prepared to give it for various reasons. So I fell into payroll. And it's fair to say, I always say I fell into payroll, but then payroll chose me.
Yeah.
So for me, it's where we say now it's a career and people choose it. I actually say payroll chose me. It wasn't what I was intending to do. I wasn't going to stay in payroll. And here I am 40 years later, still in the industry and still in the profession, still enjoying every minute of it. But yeah, that's really literally how it started. And I started in local government. That was where I actually first started.
Okay.
So really, really, sort of like local to where I lived. As a payroll assistant, there was only 3 of us in the team. So there was literally myself, there was a payroll officer, and our payroll manager, and that was it. So that's where I started. Everything was manual, so it was literally writing everything out. I mean, how things have changed, and we'll come on probably onto that a bit later. But
sure.
But it was all manual, and yeah, it was a really nice little team. Not paying a huge amount of people compared to what I do today, but it was local government, which actually had all your council workers, you had people working in your leisure centres, people looking after the gardens and the parks, so completely different to NHS. But yeah, that's where I started.
I find something quite interesting. Obviously, your initial ambitions were to go into the police force, but if you've had there's always obviously been some form of attraction of going into civil service and all local government. You're now in the NHS, could have been the police force. Was there anything in there that's always enticed you into that side? And have you ever been tempted to come out into private sector and trying payroll in a different environment, maybe bureau, maybe I don't know, something a little bit different? Or have you just what is it that's really kept you in that environment? What is it you love so much about the public sector side of payroll? I
mean, I've done both private and public sector. So in my career, I worked for a local recruitment agency, and that was interesting. And we actually established in that time also, while I was there, an agency for nurses. So that was actually interesting that, whilst I was there, we actually still then went back into NHS effectively a little bit. And I've done payroll bureau. So
okay.
So I've done sort of all the aspects really. I guess with NHS, to me, I think there's that sense of community. There's that sense of, I mean, I could never be a nurse. Never, ever. But by being in the NHS, I can actually give back to people, indirectly. It is a different way of working, and I have to say it is a different way of working. There are definitely pressures, from we get goodness knows what down from government. Every time we have a new government, you can guarantee they're going to do something different with the NHS, and I think that's where some of the challenges are, and that's what keeps me in the NHS, because of those challenges. There's never, ever a moment that it actually just seems to stop and settle down for 5 minutes, let alone, for a year or two. There is always constant change. And there's, that has the impact on payroll. And I think that's the thing with payroll, is that no 2 days are the same. No, there's always something going on. There's always changes, and it's always developing. And so I think, that's that's what I think. It keeps me in payroll, but I think for me now, having worked in the NHS for so long, I know I have an impact on patients.
Yeah,
and that
yeah, it must
to me is also it deep down at the heart of what I do.
And I know from the outside looking in as a recruiter, I've obviously supported the NHS over the years as well with different placements. And I remember when I first started, we were always talking about agenda for change, and we need people with agenda for change experience. And then I was involved in the McKesson implementation project. I was very lucky as a recruiter to be heading up that project. And there were multiple implementations. I remember saying to candidates, it was the second biggest implementation project of all time after the Chinese army. And I remember thinking that was just unbelievable. So you've seen a lot of changes, software changes like that. What is it you think you are most passionate about when it comes to pay? What's the thing that keeps the fire burning, keeps you motivated? Obviously, you've mentioned there that a little bit of a glimpse into the fact, it has an impact on patients' lives, which is obviously part of it. You've mentioned there's a bit of projects, but is there an overriding element that, why this profession is absolutely made for you?
I think the overarching thing is that, as I said, there's never 2 days the same. There is always something different going on. That could be because of a project. That could be because of writing papers. That could be dealing with staff issues. There is such a variety in payroll. I mean, there's so many different aspects to payroll. So it's not just around, for me, it's not just, obviously I work in, effectively the payroll teams paying people, but it's, there's other aspects to it. If people were interested, looking at further afield around, into the software side, there's just so much that people can do in different aspects. There's pensions, there's reward. I started out in payroll, but I've done, time in NHS pensions teams. I now oversee the pensions team, and we've got staff benefits as well, and also expenses. So it's that variety. There is just no one thing that, payroll isn't just payroll. It's not just pressing that button. It's not just doing that calculation. There is actually understanding the fundamentals behind it. How do you actually process a maternity pay? How do you actually process just change of hours? I think there is just so much to learn, and everybody actually says oh well, when do you become qualified? Yes, there's that aspect of being qualified, but there's that constant learning as well. Yeah. Every April, we've got all those changes, all the statutory changes. So, I always say, actually, I'm constantly learning. I don't know everything. It's about, for me, in my position, of knowing where I need to go, be that onto HMRC's website, looking, basically going to other people in, either we have our payroll special interest group in the region, reaching out to those managers, and even the team. I always say to the team, look, you're actually, doing the work. I won't necessarily know how to do, process a payroll now. And, I've moved that bit further away.
Sure.
I probably could if I had to. And during COVID, there was one time where I was actually asked to process a payroll. I was like, oh, do you really want me to? But, that's now not my day job. So I think, for me, it's about looking at the future as well as, keeping the service on the road at the time. So there's just so much. That's what actually sort of gives me that drive. There is just so much going on. That actually it just makes it so interesting.
Well, some of our listeners may already know this, but obviously I live on LinkedIn as a recruiter. I'm always connecting and building relationships with candidates and clients and talking. And something I've spotted this week, actually, running up to this podcast, is 2 different people have put you down as the person they've connected with the most. I think LinkedIn have run something where you're able to celebrate and I was like, this shows just how much you're giving back as well, because these people aren't working for Dorset NHS. These are payroll professionals, elsewhere working for other firms. But you do like to mentor, you do like to give back, you like to give advice. I've had Simon Parsons on the show, who I think is very similar minded, always there to try and help others. And you've had quite a journey, and you've been through some major projects. For you, what are the really big milestones, the defining moments or challenges that have really shaped your career?
I think being part of, as you've mentioned it already, the introduction of the HR and payroll system that we use now. So we were actually, the organisation I was working with at the time, we were wave one, so we were right at the beginning. And I think, having been at wave one and seeing that whole development of the system, that's been, really great. Being part of that big project, only in a small area in a way, but being part of that big project, that was significant. We're about to go through another one, obviously, because that's now all about to change again.
Yes.
But being part of that, I was also involved with the pilot of RTI. So again, being involved with that was significant. That was a significant change for everybody across the whole of the industry. And I think, and one of the things we're actually working with now is there's HMRC have recognised there were some issues with RTI at the beginning, and we're now working with them to actually find a way of how we actually resolve that, going back to 12-13, so quite a way back. But we're working with them so that they can develop a model to literally roll out to other organisations that have got the same or similar problems as we've encountered. So I think, being part of those is just, again, that's being able to give back. It's so easy, and in my early days, yes, I certainly wouldn't have dreamt of being in the position I'm in now. I was there as a payroll clerk, a payroll officer, just doing my payroll. But actually now, having had all that training, that experience, I feel, I can now give back and actually be involved with some of these big issues out in the wide field, because I just think, it's just so important, around sharing our knowledge in payroll. I mean, I always say, payroll, but actually I always refer to payroll, pensions, reward and expenses, I encompass it all under payroll. But I think it's just so important to do that. And I think the other thing as well, one of my milestones is actually being on the NHS Pensions Board now as an employer representative. So again, I can represent the NHS employers and how, the issues we're encountering, but working with the pensions agency on how to find resolutions. So there's a lot that I've been involved with, but also a lot I'm still being involved with. So I'm not slowing down, even though I've done all my 40 years so far. I think there's just still, I've got more to give.
Well, I think we know you're not slowing down. We'll jump into your team winning in-house payroll team of the year. And I know that you've become quite passionate about leadership evolution as well. I want to touch on that in a minute. I find it quite interesting. You're saying you're as passionate now and you love payroll every minute of it. 40 years on. I think that's a testament to the commitment you've given the profession. But also, you said because you're giving back. It reminded me of an old Chinese proverb that says, if you want to be happy for an hour, sleep; happy for a day, fish; happy for a year, inherit a million; but happy for a lifetime, give back to others. And it sounds like you found that element now. You've got to almost the top of the tree in your profession, and now you're able to give back through mentoring, through leadership development, through boards and trusts and things that you're involved in. I want to talk a little bit about that leadership evolution piece, because I know you've mentored others. I think there's still a big gap in the payroll industry for leadership training. I think that a lot of people get promoted because they're great at payroll, but then they're sometimes left to their own devices and they've got to kind of figure it out themselves. And you look at other functions and go, they get really invested in their leadership training, and payroll sometimes neglected. I'm hoping we can change that. But your team at Dorset Healthcare just did win in-house payroll team of the year at the Reward Strategy Awards. Fantastic achievement, so congratulations. But what do you think made your team stand out, and what does it take to build a really great modern payroll team? And the way that we're working now with technology, with flexible working, with remote working sometimes as well. What do you think makes a great leader?
So it is about that flexibility. It's about listening. I think that's a big thing. It's about listening. I've had a team across 2 sites, and it's a large team. I have in excess of 30 people. And there's around working together. So I can't know everything that's going on in everybody's life in the team unless I'm told. So there is a little bit around that whole reliance. But the minute I know somebody has an issue, they might have a personal issue, or it might be to do work, I will try and actually then talk to them and just say, look, you don't have to talk to me, you don't have to tell me anything, but I'm here if you want to. And I think that's the bit. It's about the listening, the compassion. And we spent a lot of time over the last year focusing on well-being in the team. COVID, obviously, it fragmented the team, understandably, because, all of a sudden we haven't got people working in the office. And then bringing them back in on a hybrid basis. Again, it's about trying to gel that team together again. So we focused an awful lot on well-being, even to the point that they have actually set up their own social committee. So they do things outside of work. So get to know people on a personal level rather than just through work. Yeah. We do, because we're across 2 sites, I bring the team together throughout the year, a team meeting. So again, they're not isolating themselves into each group of where they work. You've got that interaction. And once a year, we do a team away day. So we do some of the serious stuff, but we also do some fun stuff. We do things around, at the end of a meeting the other month, we actually did wreath making.
Oh, nice.
So, something completely different, something completely random, but actually it was a way of, we had somebody there to actually help that, makes wreaths each year, and showed people how to do it. But everybody was then working together, can't get this to work. How do I do this? So it's about, taking them out of their day-to-day, everyday situation and looking at something completely different, doing something fun, but actually it then brings them together. And I think that's really important with a team is around, you have to build, and not, it's a bit like a family really, isn't it? At times, you get the arguments and you have to try and sort them out. But if you can do that, relationship building, those arguments then don't escalate. They, you can then just, clear the air and that's it. But it's always key, I think, to get that, the team together, to get, to do your listening, do your compassion, do empathy, as a leader. And I think, I've done leadership courses and, you can't actually, you can understand the theories behind it, but you've got to have it in you to actually be a leader. To be a leader, to me, I know people said, you won't ever get to being in my position as I am now because I'm not a natural leader. But I think that's because the leadership in the old days was very much different to what it is now.
Under control, wasn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. Whereas for me, it is about the people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the important asset in your team is your people. And if you don't actually listen and put them first, you won't have a team.
It's good to hear, because in the age of AI, where everyone's fearful about what happens in the future, it's really nice to hear it come back to the people. And by the way, I fully agree. It sounds like you've developed a really lovely coaching style culture in your organization where you empower people, you ask questions, you listen, rather than tell people and command what they should do. You let them kind of find out their answers for themselves. Yeah. I believe everyone can be a leader. I don't think there's any perfect makeup. And actually, the science and research backs that up. There's Meta teams have done research on all the different leaders across different organizations and came to the conclusion there is no perfect leadership profile. I think how we lead ourselves every single day in what we do. I always say that how we do one thing is how we do everything. And if you can strive for excellence in the smaller things we do and then replicate that, you start leading by example. If I ask you a reflective question, because obviously you've just won this award, 40 years in the industry, at top of the profession, you're giving back, you've kind of figured it out, I would say, all right, that happens with experience. Do you think that you've changed? So, last 20 years, had you entered that award, maybe you'd have won then. But what's changed in you as a leader? How have you developed your own leadership style? Because you're obviously working at the top, as a manager 20 years ago as well. But you've obviously become much more effective now into the way that you mentor and the way that you're seen. So, I'm just interested to know how you think you may have developed in the last sort of 15, 20 years when you've been working in management level roles.
I think for me, for that whole development has been that whole learning curve of leadership. I did find it difficult in the early days of being a leader and being a manager.
Yeah.
I think for me, I had to find my own way. I had to find my own style, and being reflective on that through the courses, but to actually take the practicalities away from it, from those courses, and develop my own style of leadership. And I think, in a way, it was tough in the early days of being a manager, because yes, I did. I got promoted because of my knowledge and the work that I did, and then all of a sudden, I've got a team of 4, or and then that gradually builds, and then all of a sudden, you suddenly got this huge team. So I think also the other thing is I've developed by not taking things personally. So I would say, again, if there was criticism of the team, I would take that personally. If there was criticism I felt was of me, then I'd take that personally.
Yeah.
I think, as you move into a leadership role and as you develop, and I think, I've done this, I think, myself, is that, there's still maybe the odd time I think, oh, hang on a minute, that's aimed at me. But I think, as a leader in the world that we're in now, you can't take things personally. You have to look at the what's behind some of those comments. Is it that the individual has got a personal issue that's really causing them to be stressed? It's looking behind around some of those comments, and I think that's where I've developed I do see myself actually talking to other leaders and managers and saying, well, actually, what's really behind it? That's how it's come out, but is there something else that's a bit deeper that actually we need to explore? Is it, that it's not the career somebody wants to do? Is it that, they have a health issue? Do they have a personal problem? What's behind it? So I think that's where I've developed a lot more is trying to be more rationales coming out.
Attention payroll leaders. If you're listening to this, you already know that payroll has never been more complex. Compliance risks are rising, skilled talent is scarce, and getting it wrong can cost your business way more than just money. It can cost you trust, retention, and of course, brand reputation. I'm Nick Day, host of this show and also CEO of JGA Recruitment Group, specialist global payroll recruiters. Here at JGA, we're so passionate about payroll, we've even turned it into music. Don't believe us? Head to your favorite audio platform and search for Payroll Powers the World, and you can quite literally join us in song about how we believe payroll deserves its moment in the boardroom to shine. At JGA, we'd like to think our passion shines through to our recruitment results as well. With a 97% retention rate and an average 19-day job brief to hire success rate, we work fast, we work strategically, and we work with purpose to connect you to the hidden payroll talent that job ads and direct search methods will simply never reach. So if you're hiring or indeed planning to hire, why not partner with the experts that are shaping the future of payroll? Partner with jgarecruitment.com today, or better yet, drop me a message directly, and together we can make sure your next payroll hire is your best one yet. Well, I think you gave a bit of a secret away, I think, earlier, and it shows that you do this naturally, because I want to go back a little bit to something you said earlier on where you said, I'm not sure if I still know how to process payroll. Then you realize you had to do it in COVID, but actually it's not part of your role. You have a team that do that. But I think a lot of managers get promoted as you did because you have the most knowledge. You're very good. Your accuracy is great. You're diligent. You spot things. And then when we go into a management role, we have that pressure where we feel like we have to continue to be the most knowledgeable person in the room. And of course, as a leader, we don't. We want our teams to have that level leadership. And there's something really empowering when someone comes to you and says, Nick, do you know the answer to this? And I go, actually, I don't. What do you think it is? Why don't you go find it out? Because I don't know. And I'd love you to come back and tell me the answer so that I do know. Rather than, I think there's so much pressure entwined in us thinking we have to know all the answers. We spend so much time there knee deep in trying to be perfect that we end up missing out on the more important bits, the listening, as you mentioned, into spotting the quirks, the moments where maybe someone's struggling because we're so focused on trying to be right. And I think that's one of the biggest leadership lessons that I've seen in the managers that have developed through that process. And I think it's all normal. And if you're listening to this and you're a manager going, oh, that's me, I'm trying to know everything. It's a very normal process. But I think over time you realize it's impossible to know everything all the time.
Absolutely.
What your team need is someone who can listen and guide them and help them find the answers.
And I think, and that came out in the fall for me when COVID hit, because I was actually on leave and I was actually away when it started to hit, got back just in time before lockdown. But I then cancelled the rest of my leave and I spent 2 days literally speaking to every single member of my team and making sure that they were okay, because all of a sudden they were literally kicked out of the office and they were at home alone. So, for me, what was important was to make sure that they were okay. So my role wasn't actually processing the payroll at that point. That was my role at that point, was focusing on the team, speaking to every single one, and spending 2 days solid of just talking to people. But actually, that was what they needed. That's what they valued. And
of
so
course, doing something that never been done before, because everyone always said payroll couldn't be done from home. And overnight, everyone had to transition very, very quickly and very, very successfully, I may add. But people outside of payroll always said this couldn't be done. And suddenly it was being done.
Absolutely. We had to suddenly find, laptops for people. Everybody was literally based in the office. They had, a desktop and that was it. And we were literally trying to source laptops. Which was difficult because, laptops were then going to other areas and, were going to the hospitals that were being set up, just on, overnight. So, it did fall down to the senior team to be actually processing the payroll, for that first month. But, by hook or by crook, we got laptops for everybody. And people actually enjoy now that hybrid way of working. It gives them that flexibility. They're not having to travel every day and commute every day. And again, that then there's a feeling there within the team that actually they can be trusted to work away from the office.
Yeah,
because that's the other side of it, with people, they want to be trusted to do their job. And as long as the payrolls get done and as long as there's the accuracies there and the efficiencies there, do they really need to be in the office every day? There's a value of them being in the office at times because of those ad hoc conversations. And so I'm an advocate of both, but actually, there is no reason why, we've done it during COVID. Why can't we continue doing a hybrid method of working to give people that flexibility?
Now, of course, you've seen payroll change a lot. You've mentioned that you saw involved in the introduction of RTI and behind the scenes. You've seen the biggest implementation after the Chinese army come into the NHS. You've been involved and managing through times like COVID. You've seen the industry change from back office to almost front line. What do you think have been the biggest shifts for you? Have they been in technology? Have they been in regulation, people expectations, something else? Maybe what have been the biggest shifts for you?
Well, the biggest shifts has got to be from when I started. It was all manual. Wrote everything out. It went off to a computer centre, keyed overnight, and it came back all done and dusted. And then all of a sudden, we went into the computerised world. So that was the big obviously the biggest change really for payroll was when we started going into literally direct input of pay for teams. We had the flexibility to be able to start actually running a dummy payroll, seeing what the outcome was, make changes. Whereas when it was all manual, it literally all came back.
Yeah.
If something was wrong, you had to cancel somebody's salary completely and start again. So that was a massive change, and that's developed enormously, very quickly. In a short space of time, I think. Once it started coming in, that whole rollout for computerized systems and different systems and their capabilities as well. So, when ESR came into the NHS, that again was another level of computerization that other, previously we hadn't seen.
Yeah.
So that's been the whole technology is massive. There is a lot that's happened and developed. I think also as well is that one of the big things I think, and this isn't a change, it's one thing I think, that when started, it was very much, yes, you just press a button. That was the feeling, and it still is, that people think, literally day before payday, we press that button and everybody gets paid. And I don't think you'll ever change that. And the reason why I don't think you change it is because payroll teams, work so efficiently in the background to get the work done. I don't think that will ever
I
change.
think it will. I'm going to be controversial and challenge you a little bit on this. I do. I think there's two things we need to do. And maybe I've seen this shift, and I've been in the payroll for 22 years. And I've been guilty of this, by the way. I'm going to hold my hands up. I've done articles where I've put like the big red button in the subject line just because I know that payroll people can relate to it. But I think there's two things. I think number one, I want to get away from using the word button. I think every time in payroll we use it, and I've been guilty of it, we bring it back to the surface. We amplify the button. And even though we know that we're kind of mocking it slightly if we're in payroll, those outside just hear that single word, and it reinforces the red button image for those outside of the word of payroll. So for me, I'm really keen to try and break away from even the word button. And I think part of that process is because if we go into the modern world of payroll now, payroll has always, as you said, been working tirelessly behind the scenes. It's always been relatively invisible. But the modern world of payroll, with employee experience at the fore, has actually really shifted payroll, and COVID has helped with this, into vision. People are seeing it now. And I'm really passionate about moving payroll from I call it from invisibility to influence. And I think as payroll gets seen more, now it's more important than ever we move away from that button context, if you like, because I think it gives other departments, HR, finance, IT, almost ammunition to use against us. And we are much more than that now. Payroll is bigger than the sum of its parts. It's involved, as you said earlier, reward, pensions, technology, employee experience. We're not just processing the raw pay data. So I totally, and I've been really guilty of using it more than I should. I'm desperately trying to come away and help. I think we need to try and make that transition if you want to make payroll more visible and really say, actually, even mocking it brings it back to the surface a little. And that's what I've done. I've gone, I love cartoons and all sorts. No, Nick, I'm doing it again. Got to stop using the button because it reinforces the stereotype we're trying to break away from. But that's my view. I don't know how you feel about it.
But I think there will still be in the background of where payroll teams will need to do that work in the background. I think I agree with you. I think there is there will be a shift. And there will be a need to do a change in skill set for payroll teams around what else can they, what's the value added work that they do. But there will still be behind the scenes the push the button, the work that they need to do to actually process it. How we do that will change and is changing. And I don't know how that will change in the future. And I think, I would compare now where we are now with what's happening in payroll to where I was when we moved from manual payroll into being onto computers. We're in that really interesting stage around what technology can help.
Yeah.
And that will then help to bring payroll teams out from the background into the forefront. But we're not there yet. But also, I think there will still be that need, and there will still be some of that perception around that. Actually, people can actually just update information the day before, and off they, and it will go into their bank account the next day. And I think we won't get away from that bit. I think our roles will change because there will be that element, but there'll also be that influential side of what can we do to raise the profile of payroll? Those reports, those leading the way on things like reward. What can we offer to our employees that will support them financially? We've literally gone into a pay on demand recently, and everybody was like, oh no, that's going down a real sort of dreadful area, and people will run into debt. But actually more people, I think it's 2/3 of the people that are accessing it are saving, as opposed to a third drawing down. So again, I think our roles will change because of the technology that is coming in,
and also because our employees are demanding it.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, if someone wants pay on demand at one trust and it's not offered at another, I don't know how it works in NHS, but they're going to want to join the trust that gives them the most flexibility, and employees are demanding opportunity. I think there still needs to be more conversation around how that looks like, what that looks like in practice, and whether we're charging the employer or the employee and what those charges look like. But I absolutely agree that the research behind EWA at the moment, Single Pay on Demand, seems very positive in terms of helping people to save more and to give them more flexible payment opportunities. So I think it's really interesting seeing how technology is starting to move the needle. I think with accountants, they don't have a button associated with that profession, and yet they run all the reports, all the data's filled in, but to run a management report, ultimately, at some point, they have to press the button to make the report. It's the same, but for whatever reason, they don't have that same kind of level of it attached, because it's seen as something, maybe a higher profile. I don't know. I'm keen to break it away, because ultimately, we all have to press a button somewhere, whether I work in recruitment or in accounting, but you can't press it until all the data is accurate, until you've got all the things you need in one place, you've identified the challenges, you've made it compliant. It's only at the end of all of that work, we have to press something somewhere to process it, whether that's me pressing click on a send of an email with 3 CVs on it, or whether it's an accountant pressing run the report. So I think sometimes payroll gets a hard press. So I guess I'm keen to break away from that.
I absolutely agree. And I think that's because of where we were, and we've had to work really hard to where we are now. Accountancy was seen as the career to go. Payroll wasn't the career to go to. So which is why, I do try to raise that profile, on LinkedIn and make the comments or mentoring people, is because there is a career. My sister is actually, I'm sure she, if she listens to this, she'll actually laugh at this, but my sister is an accountant. So when I went for, and I was successful in getting the chartered, individual charter status as a payroll professional through CIPP, I can remember the conversation was, well, what does that mean? And she just kept on, and in the end, I just said, well, it just means that I'm at the same level as you. So
mic drop.
But we didn't have that. We didn't have qualifications in the early days. And that's a massive change, for us to actually now be able to be, have those formal qualifications, have that, focused and to be aimed to become, a fellow member or a chartered member of have that individual charter status. That has definitely raised the profile.
It has. It's recognition and a pathway, isn't it? That's the key.
It is. It is. And it makes, I've done succession planning with my team in the last 12 months. And literally, it's because we've now got those qualifications, it's easier to do that succession planning.
Yeah.
Because you can then actually make sure pensions at the moment, and this is an area that I'm passionate around at the moment, is that we do look towards qualifications for pensions, because it's so important. That's everybody. People are probably, hopefully, they will be drawing their pension longer than they're working. So, we've got to get it right. And that starts in payroll.
Yeah.
But equally, we need the qualified pension people to actually, to make sure that that's right for the future. So to me, I'd love to see formal qualifications for pensions on the same level as payroll. Because, again, that is such an important aspect of people's lives.
There's still some big gaps. I remember doing an episode with Kate Upcraft a couple of years ago now. She was saying there's still the big gap for her is there's still no official payroll ministerial governance. Just for payroll, you have it in pensions and other areas, but not so much for payroll. I'm still lacking in certain areas. I think one of the attractive things as a recruiter, if you're talking about payroll as a career, is actually if you do want an initial system, if you go into the accountancy side, it typically takes a lot longer to get to the top of that profession than it can do in payroll. You can really, if you're really ambitious and you're really driven to progress and to learn, actually payroll can be a really quick route to success, a quick route to leadership, a quick route to having huge responsibility, potentially managing 60 to 80% of operational expense for an organization. I mean, that's significant. It's why it needs more volume. It needs to be amplified more because of the level of responsibility that you hold within an organization. And I think that's really exciting. I think for someone listening to this, where may have come across it because they're considering a career in payroll as their future career, and they're not sure what direction to take. Why would you say they should consider payroll now? Obviously, we've talked a lot about how it's changed, but right now, I don't know, we've just graduated from university or we've just left college. Maybe we're considering an apprenticeship scheme. What do you think is a reason that payroll should really be something that people seriously consider?
I think now there's a career. There's a career path. There's so many different avenues in payroll. So we've said, there's pensions, there's reward. You can go into software development. There's just so many areas of payroll. So I think, and everybody needs payroll. At the end of the day, people want to be paid. So I think, seriously look at payroll as a career. It is a career, and I would encourage people to choose it as a career. I never ever thought that I would be leading a team of 30, paying multiple payrolls. So there is a career, and you can take that career in any direction you want within payroll. It isn't just about paying people. If you want to actually work to the top and become a leader, become a real influence in payroll, you can do it. So I think, and it's an exciting time at the moment. There's so much, going on at the moment with technology, so much with legislation. No 2 days are the same. To me, there is so much that if you're prepared to give, it will give back to you.
Yeah, I think that I would agree with you. I think we identified about a year ago now over 60 different payroll pathways, and I would think that's certainly got bigger since then. But you've got the new generation now. Whether you're passionate about pay transparency, there's a route for you. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's relevant. Technology, we're placing people now in payroll product roles, payroll software engineer positions, designers, analytics. I think wherever you want to go, there's something for you now within the world of payroll. And I don't think we had, when I started, it was still in a windowless office. It was very difficult. It was the administrator to supervisor to deputy to manager, and that was pretty much it. Now we've got directors. We're talking about chief of payroll officers and things like that. So it's come on an awful long way. I guess before we open the vault, it makes sense for me to ask you about the future of pay and reward then. So as we look ahead, we've sort of briefly touched on AI, self-service. You mentioned pay on demand earlier. I just mentioned pay transparency, and you talked as well about some of the well-being initiatives you've implemented with your own team. What changes do you predict for the future of pay and reward? What are the things that maybe excite you or even unnerve you?
For me, I think we're in the future. Now, I think there's a lot going on around technology. We're all, people talk about AI, but actually I think it's wider. it's technology.
Yeah.
How can technology help, to remove some of those huge transactional aspect? I think we're in, and I call it from transactional to transformational. I think we're in that stage, of what, yes, we can, I think there's a lot around at the moment around, automating a lot of the transactional side. And that's a big piece of work across all of the organisations. So I think we're in that stage at the moment, but then we're into the next stage of where, once we've done that transactional side, how can we transform all the organisations with what information we have to hand? So I think, we will see a further development of payroll and the profession, of having a more influential impact on organisations. What that looks like, I don't know, because I think we're in that stage.
I agree.
But I think, that's where that will be the future. And I think it's an interesting future ahead, I think, for the profession. And that's what will keep the profession going, besides having to pay people, but it will keep the profession going and bringing people in, because that will be more around the more interesting side for people.
Yeah, and let's be honest, transformational is way more exciting than transactional, just to hear it as a term. I like to say that we're moving payroll from cost center to value driver. The idea is always presented paid out, but actually the amount of value you can find in the data now, it should be seen as something much more than just a cost center. And if we can make that transition, I'm in full agreement with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, there's a lot happening, and it's an exciting time. So anybody that's thinking about what do they want to do, consider payroll. Absolutely
right. And for those that want to connect with Karen, I will put a LinkedIn profile in the show notes, so maybe they can reach out to you to mentor for some guidance. I know you're very generous with your time on LinkedIn, as the recent results have shown. Well, let's open the payroll vault. Slightly more I guess catered to questions you might be more familiar with. What's one piece of advice you wish you'd received at the start of your payroll career?
For me, I think go for it. I think if I look back, I've done a long time in leadership, but I took a long time to get there. So I think, I was happy to sit there and learn and do the payrolls and do the transactional stuff. But actually, I think in a way, if I was speaking to myself now, I would go, come on, get that energy, drive, go for it. I think that's the thing. If anybody now that's thinking, oh, I can't do that, don't. To me, it's not can't. You can, with the right guidance, the right support. If that's what you want to do, if you want to go into the development side, if you want to go into leadership, aim for it and go for it.
Go for it. Love that. What's the most underrated skill for someone working in payroll today?
Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? I think the amount of legislation that's around, the amount of requirements, statutory terms and conditions, the amount of knowledge that is actually required in the profession is underestimated. I think people feel that they could just come in and run a payroll, but it is all about having that knowledge and if you're not sure, knowing where to go. And I think that's the most underrated thing. People don't always see the legislation that we have to deal with on the same level as employment legislation. And I think, there is just so much to it. And I think that's underestimated, the actual complexities.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you've got a choice here of two questions. You can either answer the first one, which is if payroll was a movie, a book, a song, what would it be and why? Or you can answer the question that if payroll was a friend and a person, what would your relationship with it be? How would you describe your relationship?
Let's have a think about that one. I think if payroll was, I I'm going to give two answers, actually. I think if Payroll was a song, Holding Out for a Hero.
Nice. New one as well. I like that. 200 episodes. It's a new one to us. Excellent.
Because let's face it, we're all payroll heroes. So
yeah, found that in COVID. Yeah.
I think the other song it has to be "I Will Survive," won't it? As a payroll professional at times.
I had that one before. Yeah. Sure.
But no, we're still with the Holding Out for a Hero. Book-wise, I'm going to be a bit personal here, but I think "Woman of Substance" by Barbara Taylor Bradford.
Okay.
Because I think for me, it's about, from my career and my perspective, it's. I started at the bottom and I've got to the top, and but it's been through hard graft. So those are the things I think.
Yeah, you've earned the stripes. I always say there's something about let's say we climb Everest, right? And I spend 2 weeks trying to get to the top. I go through the journey, the cold, the Jacob's Ladder, all those kind of things, and I meet my best friend who's got a helicopter and flown to the top and met me there. And we're looking out across the horizon. I don't care what you say, we're not looking at the same view. Even though we're seeing the same things, it's the journey that gets you there. It's the ups, downs, the lows, the highs that really gets you to experience the high of being at the top of that mountain. Being flown there and taking a shortcut, it's never going to have the same level of fulfillment. And I think it comes through in spades, your enthusiasm, your passion for the industry, your commitment to giving back to others now. And I think that, I know it's not always going to be smooth running in anything that we do, anything that's hard, but you need the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, to really appreciate it when you do get to the top. And I think you've achieved that. 40 years is an incredible achievement. And I know there's more years to come, by the way. You've got more things to do, other projects on the horizon. So let me finish with this then, a bit of a legacy question that I wasn't planning to ask, but I think it's a nice way to close the show. When you look back across your payroll journey, from where you began to the team you lead today, an award-winning team, of course, what impact do you hope to leave on the profession?
So for me, I hope that people will feel that they are in a better place with their own careers and their payroll journey.
Yeah.
I think from my team's perspective, when I first joined, they had no access to qualifications. Now they do.
Yeah.
So I hope they see that as one of my legacies, and I think just being able to have an impact on people's lives. I think that again, is having a positive impact on people's lives is probably the biggest legacy I'd want.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you've probably achieved a lot of those already, Karen. So listen, thank you ever so much for joining me on the Payroll Podcast. Thank you for those that joined us today. I know we're on a slightly different platform, but hopefully the audio and the visuals have been clear. I think your story from your beginnings in payroll, how you fell into it, to leading an award-winning team as you are now, to being part of shaping the future of payroll and reward and pensions in the NHS. It really is truly inspiring. I have to say thank you for all of your commitment and the work that you do. And I see it from other people's lenses, other people's views, in the way that they commend you and thank you for your work on LinkedIn. I think it's the kind of story that shows just how impactful and fulfilling a payroll career can be. And I think you are having an impact on others without a shadow of a doubt. And your name comes up regularly in the conversations I have with people, not just in the NHS, but across the whole payroll profession. There's a reason for that. I think if anyone wants to connect with Karen, I'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So please do check that out. Of course, if you've enjoyed the show, please do just remember to click subscribe and to follow us. Leave us a 5-star review if you can. That'd be wonderful. But most importantly, share this with your colleagues and friends. Maybe there's someone in your network who is on the brink of considering a career in payroll, and maybe this will be the thing that tips them into taking that decision, which would be a wonderful one to take. And please do remember to subscribe and join us. But thank you, Karen, ever so much for joining me today on the Payroll Podcast.
Thank you, Nick. It's been lovely. Thanks.
Deal is the global payroll platform built for complexity. From payslips to benefits to compliance in over 150 countries. Deal centralizes everything in one secure workflow with real-time visibility across your entire workforce. No fragmented systems, no chasing local vendors, just accurate, compliant pay delivered on time, every time. See why more than 35,000 businesses trust Deal. Visit DEEL.com/nickday to book your demo. That's DEEL.com/nickday.